You're watching ABC7 News at 7.
It's a great idea. So when people talk about common sense gun safety regulation or firearm safety regulation, this is an example of something that people across the political spectrum can work with.
Law enforcement taking away guns from people who are a danger to themselves or others. Will it work in Florida? Good evening, everyone. I'm Alan Cohen, and welcome to ABC 7 at 7. We'll have more on red flag legislation in a moment, but first, our top 7 stories at 7. It has been a day of wicked bad weather on the Suncoast and throughout the entire Tampa Bay area, all the way to Orlando. Let's head over to ABC 7's chief meteorologist, Bob Harrigan, with the first alert forecast. Bob.
Thanks, Alan. Yes, a beautiful day now after some rough weather has blown through the Suncoast, and all that heavy rainfall now shifting to the east, and that is a direct result of high pressure building in. Again, tower cam, if we can go to it, is showing, again, skies starting to clear. There's a little haze in the atmosphere, and you can see that haze is off there in the distance, but it should make for a nice sunset after a pretty wild ride this afternoon in Manatee County especially, where they saw up to 3 inches of rain, winds gusting very high throughout that region. In fact, just north of Anna Maria, near Egmont Key, wind gusts recorded at 73 miles an hour, and we had a tornado reported into Highlands County earlier today. Now, all that rough weather seems to continue to push off to the east. Let's go to the radar picture and show you, if you can, because again, you can see that activity. You won't be able to see me, but I can describe it. Some showers down into Charlotte Harbor, not all that intense, but notice that in Manatee and Sarasota counties, things looking much improved there. Still some rough weather well east of our immediate viewing area, so not a problem at all. And again, all of it has shifted to the east now when we're looking for colder air to move in. And when I say colder, it's going to be unseasonably cool. We'll see temperatures running 10 degrees below average, it looks like, as we push through time. The good news is that the tornado watch that had been in place for the Suncoast has since moved on now, and we don't have any tornado watches anymore. That has expired, and looks like that will not be an issue for the upcoming days. The live sweep of the Titan radar picture showing some activity down near Rotunda and places to the east of our area. Now, rainfall amounts, as I said, were pretty excessive. We had that wind gust I mentioned near the Egmont Key, also one on the Sunshine Skyway Bridge. That was closed temporarily. We had the bridge closing as a result of the strong winds moving through there this afternoon. That has since reopened, and wind gust up to 50 miles an hour reported on that bridge at a weather station there. And just to the west of that in Egmont Key, we had some wind gusts up to 73 miles an hour, and it looks like we will see a little bit better chance for some sunshine tomorrow, and a better chance to see me. We'll have more of that come back in just a little bit. Alan?
All right, Bob, thanks a lot. New details of a drug trafficking case out of Northport. 26-year-old Dylan Woodward was arrested last Thursday evening for allegedly trafficking methamphetamine out of a Budget Inn motel. Woodward has been arrested 18 times. The question now is, how did he keep winding up back on the street?
How can somebody be arrested 18 times and still get back onto the streets?
I think that would be a question for, attorneys and judges.
Woodward remains behind bars on $26,000 bond. Manatee County Sheriff's deputies are looking for the person who broke into multiple vehicles. Investigators say someone broke into 5 vehicles parked at or near Buffalo Creek Park in Palmetto. The break-ins happened between 6 and 9 o'clock last night. If you have any information, call the Manatee County Sheriff's Office. The younger brother of accused Parkland school shooter Nicholas Cruz was in court this afternoon. Zachary Cruz was arrested yesterday and charged with trespassing. Police say the 18-year-old rode his skateboard around the campus of Marjorie Stoneham Douglas High School after getting through the locked doors and gates. The judge issued a $500,000 bond for Cruz and ordered him to wear an ankle bracelet, monitor, and have no contact with his brother and stay out of Broward County except for his court dates. And 3 Marjorie Stoneham Douglas students are under arrest tonight. 2 students arrested for bringing weapons to school, and the third is being investigated for making online threats. Also, a school deputy has been suspended for sleeping on the job. According to the Broward Sheriff's Office, 18-year-old Jordan Salter was arrested after she pulled a knife out when she was in an argument with another student. 17-year-old Gavin Strickler was arrested for allegedly bringing a knife onto a school bus. Florida's Constitution Revision Commission continuing narrowing a list of proposals that could go on November's general election ballot. Among the proposals advancing are plans to ban vaping and e-cigarettes in workplaces, along with another to prohibit naming government-owned businesses, buildings, or programs after sitting electing officials. Several other proposals were withdrawn with consideration when it appeared there was not enough support. One would have eliminated a decade-old requirement that the state set aside 30% of overall tobacco education and prevention funding for an edgy advertising and marketing campaign, which currently receives $23 million a year.
I do not believe that a marketing program for tobacco-free Florida or otherwise rises to the level of deserving a constitutionally protected funding requirement.
Amendments would need to get 60% support from voters to pass. One other area Florida voters may get a chance to vote on is a ban on oil and gas drilling in waters off the state's coast. The powerful panel that can alter the Florida Constitution gave preliminary approval on the proposed ban. A final vote will take place in May by the Commission on whether to put it on the 2018 ballot. The polls have officially closed, and Sarasota and Manatee counties will soon find out whether or not voters will choose to invest in their students. Both school districts have asked voters to take an additional $1 million property tax to raise millions for dollars for schools. It's a tax some say not only improves education, but in return strengthens the entire community and results in higher property values.
You want to build a strong community. You build it the way you build a football team, from the inside out. Schools are like an offensive line, right? It's not the sexiest thing, but it's how you win. Communities win by building strong cores to their community, and education really is that.
We'll have the results for you in just a few moments. Still to come. What authority should school law enforcement have when they get a tip about someone who owns a firearm? Stay with us.
Everything all right?
Actually, you know how Tom had knee surgery?
Sure.
We found out Brad's been taking his painkillers. And it turns out he's been doing it for a while.
Most people don't know what to say about drugs, but we do. Visit us at drugfree.org.
The skills you develop as a soldier in the Army National Guard can give you a head start on your career. Gain practical experience with technology and equipment that will give you a leg up in the civilian world. Learn critical leadership skills and to be part of a team. Serve your community and your country part-time while earning money for an education. Visit NationalGuard.com to learn about the paid training and career opportunities available to you in the Army National Guard.
My name is Haley. I have Fragile X syndrome. I work with Chartwells at Einstein's and FAU. I like being up front and interacting with students. The students are very nice and very hungry. Having a job is a big ticket for independence.
Hi, this is Dan Marino. When your business recruits people with disabilities, everybody wins. To find out how, go to disabilitieswork.employflorida.com.
Are you a soccer mom or dad? Regardless of their age or experience level, when your kids play soccer or any other sport, there's one person on the sideline who is key to help recognize and seek medical care for sports-related concussion. It's you. You need to know the signs and symptoms of concussion, and you need to act if you think your child has been injured. Remember, when in doubt, sit them out. To learn more, go to cdc.gov/concussion. 1001, 1002, 1003, 1004.
Watch Good Morning Suncoast on ABC7, weekdays starting at 5.
There are certainly a lot of things for both sides on the gun issue not to like in the new state law passed in the aftermath of the Parkland massacre, but there is one area both sides agree on, and that is taking guns away from those with acute mental health issues. Dwayne Lindo joins us with more. Dwayne.
Well, Alan, even the NRA and many pro-gun advocates are looking at this provision in what now is state law and are saying this has the potential to work statewide. The shooting in Parkland has sparked constant opposition on both sides when it comes to gun debates. But there's a new provision within Florida's gun bill that went through the session that bipartisan groups have been agreeing with.
It's a great idea. So when people talk about common sense gun safety regulation or firearm safety regulation, this is an example of something that people across the political spectrum can work with.
It's known as the red flag legislation. It gives law enforcement the power to remove guns from anyone believed to be a danger to themselves or anyone else. Eventually, the gun owner would be allowed to petition the court to get their gun back. New College of Florida professor Keith Fitzgerald says there's a chance the Parkland shooting could have been averted had this law been in place.
But this has been proven to reduce suicides, and in this case, it possibly could have prevented a shooting just like this.
Which presents lawmakers with what Fitzgerald calls a policy window to slip in legislation where it's needed.
When something that seemed to be impossible for political reasons for many, many years changes due to an event. And so the opportunity to do something new opened up, and you've got to give credit to these high school kids who said, we're not taking no for an answer, we want some action. 5
states currently have these laws on the books: California, Connecticut, Indiana, Oregon, and Washington. Fitzgerald says studies show gun-related suicides by firearm have decreased considerably in these states.
So if you can take somebody, take the weapons available to them immediately after they've expressed an intent to do harm, you can get them into mental health and maybe turn everything around.
Carol Resigno agrees. She's the president of the Sarasota chapter of the Brady campaign to prevent gun violence, and points out the person who is red flagged, more importantly, has a right to due process.
There's some concern, I believe, on the other side, on the far right, that there are due process issues here. We think that this law deals with those. People still would have due process. We're not taking away their constitutional rights by doing this.
I certainly think it's a better strategy than, banning firearms or stripping certain rights from people to get these gun protection orders in place.
But pro-gun advocate Jeff Young has reservations with tampering with the Second Amendment, but sees this provision as being a plus.
I actually read the entire thing word for word. I was afraid that there might be some loopholes in there or some issues, but it's actually a fairly well-written law that I think addresses a lot of the concerns that I, as a private citizen and gun owner, would have about this particular issue.
Fitzgerald agrees. He says, bottom line, this is a provision that will go a long way.
Because there were pieces in it that made somebody very upset, and there were pieces of it that made somebody really happy. But here's a little piece that I think will do some real good that actually would never have been considered, and now is part of law.
Now, in the states where the law is currently in effect, there is usually an uptick in the use of the law after a mass shooting occurs in other places.
Dwayne, thank you. Coming up, Sarasota's top prosecutor, Sarasota's top pro-gun lawyer, and Sarasota's top safety expert in schools, all waiting for us at Sarasota's top trapezoid.
Rugs as Art, Sarasota's only area rug superstore.
Hi, I'm Joan London with A Place for Mom. Over the years, we've helped thousands of families find senior care, and today's senior living communities have never been better, with amazing amenities like movie theaters, exercise rooms and swimming pools, public cafes, bars and bistros, even pet care services. And nobody understands your options like the advisors at A Place for Mom. These are local expert advisors that will partner with you to find the perfect place and determine the right level of care, whether that's just a helping hand or full-time memory care. Best of all, it's a free service. Call today. A Place for Mom. You know your family, we know senior living. Together, we'll make the right choice.
Call A Place for Mom right now to get our free ebook on financing senior care, as well as a free referral for senior living communities in your area. Call 1-800-290-0352. That's 1-800-290-0352.
Selfless service is the principle that guides Army National Guard soldiers to be ready whenever disaster strikes. They have a stake in the well-being of the neighborhoods where they live and work. They train part-time to be ready to serve at all times. Selfless service. It's what inspires the men and women of the Army National Guard to be part of something greater than themselves. Visit NationalGuard.com to learn more.
My name is Luke Perry, and I am 1 million strong. I'm in the fight against colorectal cancer because I believe we can win it. Colon and rectal cancers are the second leading cause of cancer deaths among men and women in the U.S. Colon cancer is preventable. Know the risk factors and make sure to get screened. There are simple, take-home options available. Take control of your health. Screening for colon cancer isn't embarrassing. It can be life-saving. To find out more about your options, visit fightcrc.org.
Welcome back. Before we get into our conversation, we want to update you on one of our top stories. Sarasota and Manatee voters going to the polls today to decide whether or not to increase their own property taxes to spend on education. Let's take a look at some of the results here in Sarasota County. By an overwhelming margin, Sarasota voters have voted to increase their millage rate for money to go to the schools in terms of extending the day at school. And also in Manatee County, that referendum has also passed by a narrower margin, voters voting by 51.36% to increase the millage rate. These are unofficial numbers, and of course we will be updating it throughout this broadcast and tonight coming up at 11. And back to our conversation. Whoa. Sheriff's deputies storming into a Florida man's home and taking his weapons and 267 rounds of ammunition against his will, and no protest. That's because this was the first ever usage of Florida's new red flag legislation signed into law after Parkland. It permits police to confiscate guns from people deemed a potential risk to themselves and others, and it prohibits them from buying weapons and ammunition from any source until they can prove to a judge that they do not pose a risk. It marks a rare point of consensus between gun control and pro-gun advocates. And joining us for more is Ed Brodsky, state's attorney for the 12th Judicial Circuit, Jeff Young, known locally as the gun lawyer, and Kurt Lavarello, executive director of the School Safety Advocacy Council. Thank you all, gentlemen, for joining us tonight. And Jeff, let me start with you, because as I said, it seems a rare point of consensus that people have been talking about for a long time, but only now has become Florida law after that terrible tragedy in Parkland. Do you think this could have been passed before Parkland?
Maybe. I had actually never heard of this concept until after Parkland. Obviously, I'm familiar with the domestic violence injunctions and things of that nature. But after Parkland, I saw on Facebook people were sharing articles about this concept, and I actually shared it myself and said this is actually a pretty good idea. So could it have passed beforehand? I don't know. I just don't think a lot of people knew about the concept, and I don't know if it ever even been proposed or discussed. So I can't really answer that question.
Ed, what has been the problem for prosecutors and police officers before now in terms of removing firearms from those people who maybe close friends and family or neighbors believe posed an imminent risk?
I don't think we had as strong a tool as we do now. I think that Florida's on a heightened state of alert right now. I think that when tragedy hits home, as it did here in our backyard, I think that there's an immediate reaction. And we don't want to see our children, and we want to make sure that our community's safe and our kids are safe. And And now we're giving law enforcement and our courts the tools that they need to make sure that dangerous individuals don't have firearms.
What was the legal impediment?
Well, I think that that there is stronger mechanisms in place now that weren't in place previously that allowed the courts to much more swiftly act. And this legislation that was now passed gives the authority of the courts to allows officers to search for weapons, seize weapons, and allows law enforcement officers to go into a residence where they believe that there's firearms and weapons and to remove those.
Kurt, you study school safety and you travel the country on this issue. You saw Keith Fitzgerald in our report say that if this law was in effect previously, this may have prevented Parkland. Do you agree with that?
You know, I do. Actually, looking at some of the cases that the Broward Sheriff's Office handled leading up to the shooting, it looked like there were a couple in which the law enforcement officers' hands were tied. And I, as a former school resource officer myself, I can tell you there were countless times we'd be in a school and we wanted to take action, but our hands were tied and not able to do what we'd like to do in terms of eliminating the risk. So I think this law, along with some of the mental health provisions of the new law, will give us some new tools.
Are there two issues here? Number one, the limitations of the law, but also the documented failures of law enforcement in Broward County.
Well, there's no doubt some documented failures in that case all across the board, and you know, being from Broward County, that would hit a little bit closer to home. But certainly, I think this new law will help us, especially in the school setting.
Okay, we have to take a quick break. We're getting warmed up, and we'll have much more on red flag legislation right after we check the first alert weather. Stay with us.
I actually started playing the game at 11 years old, so I started a little bit later than most players. But I was actually raised on Fighting Joe. The value here at Robert Trent Jones is unsurpassable. I mean, I have looked to other places. I've traveled all the way across the country. Everything is perfect as far as everything is the golf course, the rolling of the greens. Everything that I've encountered has just been absolutely incredible. And for the money that you spend, for the value that you actually get, it is unsurpassable. I'd recommend it for anybody.
We answered the call of duty and left our homes to serve in far-off lands. Now, we answer another call, this time at home, in our own communities, to respond in times of chaos, to use our strength, our skills, and our experiences to bring hope amid devastation and destruction. Together, as a team of brothers and sisters, we're continuing our mission to make this country a little stronger and a little better each day. We are Team Rubicon.
So I kind of grew up all across the country. I come from 5 generations of military men. My dad is still active duty. My grandpa is retired Marines. I like going for runs with my dog. I love, taking her out to the dog beach over in Venice. There are so many things here to do on the Suncoast. My goal every day when I come into work at ABC7 is to tell your stories, give you that major local news and those details that you really care about. I'm Jacqueline Matter, and I'm here for you.
Meet Blue. Blue's not feeling well. The prescription? Generic medication. Blue wonders, do they really work as well as name brands? Yes, generics and name brand medications do work the same. Even though they may look different, generics have the same key ingredients. FDA approval is equally rigorous for generics to make sure they're as safe and effective as name brands. And Blue even saves him green, making him a little less, well, blue. Talk to your doctor about generics and visit fda.gov/generic drugs.
A decade of war has taken an unprecedented toll on our men and women in uniform.
Hundreds of thousands of our veterans are suffering from the trauma of war.
At Justice for Vets, we believe that every veteran should have the opportunity for treatment and restoration. Get involved and go to justiceforvets.org.
Help put treatment within reach of veterans in crisis.
Veterans fought for our freedom. Now it's our turn to fight for theirs.
Our conversation on red flag legislation continues right after we get the check on the first alert forecast from Chief Meteorologist Bob Harrigan. Bob.
Thanks, Alan. And it looks like we may go into red flag warnings for us tomorrow. Some very dry air moves in and windy weather, too. That's always a high fire danger for us. Once these fronts move through, things really dry out and turn windy. And the winds are going to be anywhere from 10 to 20 to 25 miles an hour, gusts as high as 30 out of the west and northwest. And we have rip current advisories in. That cold weather is following this huge front that moved through this afternoon, bringing with it severe storm warnings for the Sun Coast and also winds gusting as high as 73 miles an hour at Egmont Key. Here's a look at that little roll cloud out ahead of that heavy rainfall looking through North Sarasota Bay. James White getting that photo and sending it in to Pix at mysuncoast.com. Lakewood Ranch, you really missed the bulk of the heavy rainfall as it fell to your north, kind of quieted down and then redeveloped east of Lakewood Ranch and to the south. Although there were a few showers there, it wasn't as intense as they saw in, say, Palmetto, Bradenton, as well as Anna Maria Island. Now the rain is lingering near Punta Gorda, Port Charlotte, over for the most part. Northport, you saw your fair share of heavy rainfall. Over an inch fell across parts of Northport near Warm Mineral Springs, but all that rain has since moved on now, and things are much calmer across our viewing area, especially into Manatee, Sarasota, Hardee, and DeSoto counties. Still in Highlands County, where they did have a tornado earlier reported that has since dried out now. And all the way on I-75 from Hillsborough County southward to Charlotte County, it's rain-free, which is nice. But we do have winter coming back after we see the first day of spring tomorrow. It officially rolled in at 12:15 this afternoon. And so did the rain, just after that. And the heavy rainfall, as I mentioned, near Holmes Beach, Anna Maria Island, as the estimates go, 3 inches there, 3.2 inches just to the west of Parrish. Near Ellington, we had lesser amounts, but still some heavy rainfall there in Oneiko, 1.5. And look at the little slot of dry air, not much going on at all from, say, Venice northward up into Siesta Key. Down south, though, 1.5 inches of rain there near Northport and just north of Inglewood. 74 degrees right now. It's still relatively warm. It's a nice evening right now, and we have 68 degrees on the dew point. The rain has ended. The high today was 81 degrees. That's well above the average of 77. We can say goodbye to these average temperatures or warm temperatures as we are going to look at some pretty chilly weather here for the upcoming, looks like 72 hours, 44 hundredths of an inch of rainfall at the Sarasota Bradenton Airport. That brings our monthly total up to only 94 hundredths, so we should be well past that right now. So we have a deficit of over 1.5 inches. Futurecast showing all the rain scooting on by down South Florida tomorrow afternoon. And then we'll see that north to northwest wind. It will be windy, rip current advisory, along with a high wind advisory for lakes. And then on top of that, a small craft advisory will stay with us through the day on Wednesday and more than likely through the day on Thursday. By Friday, we start to see that shift a little bit. Winds will move to the east, northeast late in the day, and that'll be a good sign for the weekend. If you were planning on a good weekend, you're going to get it. Lots of sunshine and temperatures warming to near average or even slightly above that on Sunday as a result of that high pressure ridge kind of setting up east of the state. So I mentioned the wind west throughout tonight. Tomorrow morning, northwest up to 21 miles an hour. These are just sustained winds. We could get gusts as high as 30. And that wind turns a little bit more northerly on Thursday morning. Thursday morning appears to be pretty chilly. So does Friday morning, with lows into the 40s on Friday morning to start things off. Well, the national satellite picture showing the big story is the 4th nor'easter in a row in less than really 4 weeks there. Guess what? Long-range models indicate another one developing by Sunday and working its way up, and it could be even stronger than this one on Tuesday of next week. So another nor'easter expected. That'll be 5 in a row. Those folks have seen up in parts of the northeast United States. Small craft advisory stays with us. Seas running 5 to 7 feet. Choppy conditions on the bays and inland waters. The 7-day forecast then, well, I told you it's going to stay cool right through Friday. The coldest morning will be Friday morning when it gets down to 46. Although it will feel chillier, I think, on Thursday with that wind blowing out of the north. They'll be right around 50 degrees, but look at this. We have something to look forward to, mid to upper 70s by the weekend. Alan will be back with his guests right after this. Stick around.
Attention, Americans eligible for Medicare. Are you getting all the benefits you're entitled to? Did you know there may be money available to lower your medical prescription costs? Call Health Markets and we'll tell you if you qualify.
Hi, I'm Dr. Martin Jeetzy. It's a new Medicare year. That means more changes and more confusion. The key question is, what can you do now to ensure you get the care you need in the coming year?
Call Health Markets today. You may qualify to save money on prescriptions. We'll help you find plans that may cost less, cover more, and could even lower your prescription costs to increase your savings. We help you find all the benefits you're entitled to, and we do it at no cost.
Make sure you have what you need to get the care that's right for you.
Find out if you qualify to receive extra help with your prescriptions. Call the number on the screen now. Representatives are standing by.
Since 1972, Sleep King has provided quality mattresses and accessories at the best discounted prices available. Top brands like Simmons, Sealy, Serta, Beautyrest, iComfort, and more. With available free delivery, free financing, and free setup and removal. For a comfortable night's sleep with same-day delivery, even if we have to carry it on our backs. Trust Sleep King of Sarasota. Buy it today, sleep on it tonight.
That is a pretty good breakfast. You're not even eating.
Not hungry.
No? Why not? What's up?
Kath and I knew that Jenny had been partying a bit. Found out she tried heroin.
Most people don't know what to say about drugs, but we do. Visit us at drugfree.org.
Performing on stage takes mental and physical preparation. But one thing I never thought to prepare for was cervical cancer. 91% of cervical cancers are caused by the human papillomavirus, or HPV. The good news is there are vaccines that can protect you or your children from cancer. I survived my cancer, but you can stop cancer before it starts. Talk to your doctor and go to thinkaboutthelink.org to learn more.
Welcome back. We're talking about Florida's new red flag law, and joining us for more is Ed Brodsky, state's attorney for the 12th Judicial Circuit, Jeff Young, known locally as the gun lawyer, and Kurt Lavarello, executive director of the School Safety Advocacy Council. So let's tell folks a little bit about the first person in Florida who came under this new red flag law. He was a 54-year-old man from Broward County who told officers he was targeted by the FBI and burglarized. And officers said that when they entered his home on a welfare check, they found evidence of voluminous amounts of notes containing numerous references to former President Barack Obama, that Obama was killed in the 1980s but came back now to murder children, to place their spirits into the man's head, and that I guess he's saying that Obama was a member of Al-Qaeda. Ed, if this set of facts was given to you or police before this law went into effect, what could you do with it?
Well, I think previously what would have had to have occurred is law enforcement would have had to have had a probable cause to believe that the person was committing a crime, and what they would have done is then asked the court for authority to obtain a search warrant and then search the residence. Where now here they believe that he's a danger to himself or to others, and they can petition the court for a risk protection order, and the court can authorize it.
And Jeff, what, as far as you are aware of, is the procedure? Let's say this gentleman here is taken away and he's Baker acted and he receives treatment. What would he have to do to get his firearms back?
Well, I think in answer to your last question, they wouldn't have necessarily had to get a search warrant for a crime. They could have Baker acted in, which they did in this case as well. And then if he gets a civil commitment, an actual judge orders that he stay longer on his Baker Act, that would make him a prohibited person, which would mean he wouldn't be allowed to buy firearms, et cetera, after that anyway. But with this new law, that gives them one extra thing that they can do. So in this particular case, they get the injunction. The person is supposed to voluntarily turn in their firearms. If they refuse to voluntarily turn them in, or if you think they have more firearms than what they told you, then you can seek a search warrant and go into the home and remove any firearms that you have. Basically, he's now entitled to have a hearing. The court has to have a hearing where he can come, and the state has to prove, law enforcement has to prove by, I believe it's clear and convincing, that he's a danger to himself or to others, and they need to take these guns. And then if they do that, the injunction stays in place for a year. He is permitted at any time during that year to apply to get his guns back. The burden would then be on him to go to court and prove that he's now fixed, he doesn't have any of these issues, and he can get his gun back. That's generally what the procedure is. Now, this case is a clear case. It's clear by the facts of this case that this person would fall under this statute. Our concern in the gun community is when you have cases that aren't so clear, when you get gray area cases where somebody isn't necessarily thinking that an ex-president came back from the dead, but maybe they're just a little depressed, or maybe they're a little concerned about with their work or whatever. So I'm concerned about how it's going to be applied to everybody as a whole. This case is quite clear. Let's see how it shakes out when you get more gray area cases down the road.
Right, because Kurt, a lot of people who may have mental health issues have not been adjudicated by a court of law that they have that. So, you know, are you concerned that up until now, people who should not have been having a firearm in the house have had it, and that this law really kind of deals with that as completely as needs to be done.
Absolutely. We can, we'd put special watches on people all the time in the law enforcement community, especially in the school setting where we knew a young person had, mental health issues, and we knew that the house was full of guns. It was always a concern of ours, and we made certain that we'd focus on this young person when they came to school. And so this law does provide us an extra tool to see if something like that could be prevented.
I'm wondering here when we're talking about this, that some people are fine until they're not. There was a situation up in Pasco County, I believe. A retired police captain got into an argument with a guy during the previews of a movie because he was texting his daughter. This was a police captain, and they got into an irrational debate over texting, and the guy is dead here. You're okay until you're not, and this kind of law doesn't seem to be able to address that.
Well, there's no law that would be able to address that. I mean, that situation I don't think was a mental health issue. The guy, as you said, was a retired police officer. There was no indication that he had any kind of violent history or would have any problems with his gun. That's your standard road rage style incident that happens, and there is no law that would be able to prevent something like that. If you have a law like this where you have somebody with clear evidence that they have mental health issues, the Baker Act was there before. Now, the Baker Act is still there because I think you're going to see a lot of these work together in conjunctions just like that did in this previous case, but now the person wouldn't necessarily get their guns back once they just get released from the hospital. There's an extra step that they have to do so.
This is an important question, Ed, because I have seen situations like this play out, and police have said there has to be an imminent threat to doing yourself or others harm. That's, what do you mean by imminent? How imminent does it have to be? If you saw that somebody within the last couple of months have made some kind of suicidal threats?
Well, they've established two standards. One standard, if you're applying for an order without having a hearing before the court, where the law enforcement has to show reasonable cause to believe that the person poses a threat to himself or to others. And, mental illness, violent behavior, those are all factors that are going to be considered. If it now goes to a hearing before the court, then the court will have to present clear and convincing evidence to show that this person presents a danger to himself or to others. And there's a number of factors that the court will consider that I think are relevant to the issue for the court to decide whether the person needs to have these weapons taken away from them.
Like what factors?
Well, they'll include whether there's been a history of substance abuse, whether there's been a history of domestic violence, whether the person's been convicted of any incidents involving the threat or use of a firearm, stalking, incidents of prior stalking against other individuals.
Yeah, the statute actually lays out, as I said in my segment, it's actually a pretty well-written statute. It actually lays out a lot of different factors that the court is to take into place, such as a lot of things that Ed listed out there. So it's pretty clear what they're looking at.
Kurt, what about the gray area that Jeff is talking about, that some cases, many cases, may not be as clear-cut as the incident that we just cited here, and who makes the decision whether or not that this behavior is worthy enough to remove firearms from someone's hand?
Sure. Well, I think the one thing we have to keep in mind is that this is one tool in this big toolbox called this Marjorie Stoneman Douglas Act that was enacted as a result of the tragedy that happened in Broward. So there are some good things in that law, the way it was written, that will aid us in law enforcement and school safety. But there are also some things in there that will detract from school safety in my field, such as arming the civilians in schools. I think that passed along with this, and I think that brings up a real problematic approach, especially when we're requiring 132 hours of training for a civilian to now carry a gun in our schools in Florida. We require over 1,000 hours to be a barber in Florida. So I think there are some things that can also lend to the opposite side of the equation as well.
That sounds like a whole other show that we'll have you back for. But Jeff, sure. let me ask this tough question. We only have probably less than a minute left here. But what happens, God forbid, if there is a teacher that discharges a firearm because of a perceived threat in the classroom and hits a child, and there's an argument made that the training wasn't enough?
Oh, they'll deal with that at the particular time. I mean, I obviously disagree, and I'm for more armed people in the schools, whether they're school resource officers. I mean, we just had a shooting in a school today that was stopped by an armed person at a school, happened to be a school resource officer. But I think that's a pretty adequate amount of training. I mean, no offense, but a lot of law enforcement officers probably don't spend that much time on the range getting their certificates on shoot the firearm. So again, that is a whole discussion for another day, but I mean, that's just one part of the law.
We have to take a quick break, and we'll be back for final thoughts in just a moment. Stay with us.
Northland Outdoors is about so much more than the biggest fish or the hottest hunting spots. All across the Northland, there are amazing people with incredible stories to tell. We're going to find those stories and share them with everyone. Join us each and every week as we explore the Northland and experience some of the most exciting outdoor adventures in the country right here in our own backyard. This is Northland Outdoors.
My name is Stephen Jaffe. The law firm's name is Farmer Jaffe. One of the beautiful things about Julius is he's always smiling, and it becomes infectious. The fact that Julius has a disability has absolutely nothing to do with the quality of work that he's done. Just a great person you want on your staff.
Hi, this is Dan Marino. When your business recruits people with disabilities, everybody wins. To find out how, go to disabilitieswork.employflorida.com.
Imagine a world filled with pillow fights, playgrounds, and the search for the perfect climbing tree. Every kid deserves that world, but 1 in 5 kids in America struggle with hunger. At No Kid Hungry, we're committed to creating a world where every kid eats healthy food every day. We raise funds, we help families, and we lift up communities.
There's a lot of fear in coming back to school. I'm a 40-year-old man that walked in there to get his high school diploma. It was very hard for me, but one of the teachers was Miss Araceli. She gave me direction. Every single time I had a question, she'll put down whatever she's doing and she'll sit there with you until you get it. 50% of getting your high school diploma is walking through those doors. The other 50% is doing the work.
Find free adult education classes near you at finishyourdiploma.org.
Enjoy some of the best Suncoast restaurants on me. Just go to mysuncoast.com/dining, sign up for the newsletter if you haven't already, and you can win a $50 gift card to a restaurant in our area. We'll pick a winner each week, so go on our website and sign up now.
And our guest joining us right now for final thoughts. And Ed, I know you think this is a good law, but it's not the be-all, end-all. It doesn't solve, obviously, all the problems that we have out there with gun violence.
No, I think this is an outstanding piece of legislation, bipartisan effort between the two houses, and the House and the Senate on both sides. And this is going to go a long way. There's a lot of different pieces to this bill, from education to mental health to providing ways to anonymously report suspicious behavior, to giving law enforcement the tools that they need to more proactively prevent gun violence. This is a very strong effort for law enforcement, a very powerful tool, and I think it's going to make a difference.
And Jeff, I know you overall support the bill, although there are some concerns, but what kind of feedback have you gotten in the pro-gun community in terms of concerns about this legislation?
Well, I mean, there's two separate issues. The legislation, there's obviously certain parts of it that we are adamantly opposed to, the raising the age of 21, mandatory rating periods, banning of bump stocks. I mean, gun owners are adamantly opposed to those. As far as this specific red flag legislation goes, like anything else, I think the concept is good. I'm just curious as to see how it's going to be used effectively. As a defense attorney, as a civil libertarian and a gun owner, we're always concerned when you give the government more authority to come into your home and do things, whether it's remove stuff or arrest you or search for items. So our initial concern is always abuse by law enforcement or the judges to use these for nefarious means. So I just kind of want to wait and see how it plays out.
And Kurt?
Well, I would agree, with Ed and Jeff, in that this is a definite step in the right direction. However, I'd love to see this discussion not at the hands of another tragedy. This is something we should be discussing 365 days a year, not just when something like that happens.
Hear, hear. Gentlemen, thank you very much. FYI, you can watch past discussions on demand. They're available on Apple TV, Amazon Fire, and Roku. And for the latest on local breaking news, don't forget to download the updated version of our app. If your current app doesn't work, it's expired. Just go to the App Store and re-download it by searching for WWF WSB or My Suncoast. We want to thank all our guests for being here tonight. Ed Brodsky is the state's attorney for the 12th Judicial Circuit. Jeff Young is known locally as the gun lawyer. And Kurt Lavarello is the executive director of the School Safety Advocacy Council. When we return, we'll have a final look at your first alert weather. Plus, what did President Trump have to say about Vladimir Putin being re-elected? Stay with us.
My name is Stephen Campagna. We're Ben Gates and Dramus, and here is your law tip of the week. If you've been injured in an accident, whether or not it's your fault, your insurance company might be responsible for some of your expenses. So give us a call. We've got your back.
Thank you.
What are you doing? You are the best protection she has. Buddy up. I'm Jill Harrington. Please visit helpsavethenextgirl.com and get involved.
Every child follows a path in life. For many, that path will lead them to a door that gives them a place to grow, to learn, to belong, a place to forge their future. Because while many doors open, these doors transform. They did for us. Support your local Boys and Girls Clubs. Great futures start here.
Who else has been taking your prescriptions? Keep your medicine and your family safe and secure. Mind your meds. To learn how we can help, visit the Partnership for Drug-Free Kids at drugfree.org.
Everyone's buzzing about Suncoast View.
I like watching the Suncoast View.
I like the Suncoast View.
The cooking segments, I love the recipes. The theater segments are terrific. They're just fun.
For smart, fun talk in the afternoon, watch Suncoast View, weekdays at 4 on ABC7.
Are coming up in a moment, but right now let's get a final check on our first alert forecast with Chief Meteorologist Bob Harrigan. Bob.
Alan, it's all over. The heavy weather that we saw earlier, and not everyone got it, mainly in Manatee County and North Sarasota County and into South Sarasota County as well as inland counties. But say, for example, Osprey missed a lot of it, as well as North Venice and stretching off towards Siesta Key. And a little bit here in downtown Sarasota. What happened is the first line came through. That kind of made its way eastward. And the second line redeveloped just west of Venice and then moved ashore and caused some problems down there. But we had a brief stint of some rainfall here at the station in downtown Sarasota, but not as much as I saw up north. Now, as far as the rain goes now, it's all over. It's all said and done now. We will look for some drier air to move in. But one thing to note, it will be windy. Windy weather will move in, and that means small craft advisories are in effect. On top of that, rip currents. I know this is always a very pleasurable time for folks who like to ride the waves, you know, the surfers out there. Well, those waves are going to be big, but unfortunately, we're also going to see some dangerous rip currents occurring. And if you don't know about rip currents, you're vacationing down here, they can kill. In fact, they usually do more than lightning does here each and every year in Florida. And what they do is they cause you to get carried out as the waves crash ashore. The water has to get away back into the Gulf. Creates little channels, and if you get caught in one of those channels, you can't even swim against it. Not even the best Olympian swimmer can make it against that kind of current. So what you have to do is obviously yell and scream and swim outside of that current, and eventually back to shore. Hopefully someone will rescue you, and always remember to swim where life guards are located. Well, the Titan radar picture showing that heavy weather along the east coast now. Not much going on here. All the warnings have expired for us in terms of tornadic activity. We still have the advisories, though, for rip currents. On top of that, small craft and lake wind advisories are in effect. A lot of rain to the north. We had 3 inches, at least estimated to have fallen near Anna Maria Island and northwest Braden, and up to 2 inches. Palmetto, a little less amount. 74 right now, 68 on the dew point. That dew point temperature will come down throughout the day tomorrow. It'll drop down into the 40s once again. The high today was 81 before the rains moved in. That aided the storms this afternoon, especially in Manatee County, where we had 3 separate severe thunderstorm warnings at one point. There haven't been a whole lot of reports of damage. There have been some power outages, however, sporadic power outages. I know one reported in Palmetto. And we had that 73-mile-an-hour wind gust near Egmont Key at a weather station there near Fort DeSoto Park. Well, these are not cirrus clouds. These are called stratocumulus clouds. What happens is that cold air moves over the relatively warm waters of the Gulf of Mexico now and create these low clouds. So they'll be around now and again throughout the day on Wednesday. But generally speaking, we're looking for a lot of sunshine, but that will not warm things up all that much. Temperatures will stay pretty much where they are right now, into the mid to upper 60s, and then even cooler still, I think, on Thursday. Friday morning, we start off in the mid 40s in most places. So yes, despite the fact spring officially moved in today at 12:15, it's going to feel more like winter, and it will be windy. As I said, northwest winds, north winds as well on Thursday. Pretty brisk even on Thursday, out of the north at 10 to 15. And then we start to subside as far as boaters are concerned. I think a little bit better weather for boating comes Saturday and Sunday as that high pressure kind of slips in and that pressure gradient loosens up a little bit. Well, nationally, the big story is talking about this nor'easter again. Heavy snow expected. We're already getting some in New Jersey, Pennsylvania, eastern portions of Pennsylvania. Well, I looked at the long-range model. I know a lot of people are focusing on this storm. There's an even bigger storm heading in that general vicinity next Tuesday. So it just doesn't want to relent there. For boaters and small craft advisories, northwest winds at 20 knots. Here's the forecast, and as we see it, 60s through Friday. The coldest morning will be Friday at 46, but it may feel a little bit colder on Thursday morning as we'll see a north winds at 10 to 20. But look at the weekend. Does it look good or what? Mid-70s to upper 70s, lots of sunshine around and less wind. Alan will be back with primetime headlines right after this. Stick around.
This is an important announcement. If you're between 50 and 85 and worried about your loved ones, you can still get affordable life insurance for peace of mind.
My life insurance coverage is guaranteed, and I was not required to get a medical exam.
I had high blood pressure and diabetes, and I got my coverage with one telephone call. No exam necessary.
I'm a smoker, and I wanted to take care of my family. I called to get my life insurance and my affairs in order. I wanted to do the right thing.
Call Final Expense No Exam Insurance. Your rates are guaranteed and will never increase.
I called and learned that this insurance cannot be canceled even if you get sick or gain weight.
And there are no restrictions on how my beneficiaries use the money when I'm gone.
Approval was easy and the price was right. I wanted to do this for my children.
Call 800-738-9812. 800-738-9812.
Glasses and contacts. You need them to see, but they put such a strain on your life, you miss precious moments. Due to new advances in vision improvement technology, LASIK is now affordable for almost everyone, with procedures starting as low as $299 per eye and over 1 million procedures performed by our trusted independent surgeons. LASIK surgery is a sensible, safe, and affordable solution to improve your vision. Our simple 3-step process begins with a free evaluation, followed by an extensive preoperative exam to determine if you're a candidate for LASIK eye surgery. Depending on the results of your evaluation and eye exam, you and your surgeon will choose the LASIK option that works best for you. So call now to talk to a LASIK Vision Institute counselor and schedule your free evaluation. That's a $100 value, free. Call the LASIK Vision Institute for your free evaluation and enjoy more of your life.
Call 1-800-813-0109. 1-800-813-0109.
It's time to take a road trip.
Alabama's got 100 road trips, and some of the best are music to your ears, like the Alabama Music Hall of Fame. Or head over to Muscle Shoals and Fame Studios. Are you a star yet?
My mama thinks so.
Or, if that's your stomach I hear grumbling, our barbecue is almost a religious experience. Food good here? Best in the country. Alabama's got 100 road trips.
Which one you gonna take?
Checking our primetime stories, we return to our top story. Sarasota and Manatee voters going to the polls to decide on whether or not to increase or maintain funding for local schools by an overwhelming margin, 78.54%. Sarasota voters have voted to continue the ad valorem millage rate to fund local schools, 96% of the precincts reporting. And in Manatee County, it looks like voters there have agreed to raise their property taxes to increase funding for education. That passing 51.33% with 68 out of 70 precincts reporting. In other news, President Trump is giving a shout out to Vladimir Putin on winning the election in Russia. Does that help? ABC's Karen Travers has more.
The White House will not say if it believes that Russia's recent election was free and fair, saying the U.S. doesn't dictate how other countries operate. But Republicans on Capitol Hill were criticizing President Trump for placing a congratulatory call to Vladimir Putin. President Trump spoke by phone Tuesday with Russian President Vladimir Putin
and congratulated him on the victory, his electoral victory.
There was strong pushback from Republicans on Capitol Hill. Senator John McCain said in a statement, quote, "An American president does not lead the free world by congratulating dictators on winning sham elections." McCain added that President Trump insulted every Russian citizen who is denied the right to vote in a free and fair election. The White House pointed out that President Obama placed a similar call to Putin in 2012, and President Trump even hinted at another sit-down with the Russian leader.
We will probably get together in the not-too-distant future so that we can discuss arms, we can discuss the arms race.
The White House said there are no specific plans to do that at this time. President Trump and Putin spoke about shared national security priorities and challenges, North Korea, Iran. But it's what they didn't talk about that's raising eyebrows. Did the two leaders discuss the recent poisoning of a former Russian spy in England?
I don't believe that was discussed in today's call.
Did President Trump bring up Russia's meddling in the U.S. election?
I don't believe it came up on this specific call, but it is something that we've spoken extensively about and continue to look at ways and steps forward to make sure it never happens again.
The Senate Intelligence Committee today released recommendations to shore up U.S. election systems and prevent future foreign meddling, including a return to paper ballots and better communication from federal officials about foreign intrusion. Karen Travers, ABC News, the White House.
It's happened again, this time in Maryland, where a student gunman is dead after he shot two other students at Great Mills High School this morning. The St. Mary's County Sheriff's Office says the school resource officer fired at the shooter and the shooter fired back. The officer was not injured. The shooter opened fire in the hallway shortly before classes at 8 a.m. A male student is in stable condition and a female student is in critical. The FBI is investigating. United Airlines says it's putting a stop to shipping unaccompanied pets on its flights. The airline saying effective immediately it will stop accepting new reservations for its Pet Safe program. The policy change comes in the wake of recent mishaps involving the airline and pets last week. A French bulldog died after a flight attendant told its owner it needed to be put in the overhead luggage bin. A few days later, a dog that was supposed to go to Kansas was mistakenly shipped to Japan. The review is expected to be completed by May 1st. And that's all the time we have for this evening. I'm Alan Cohn. Thanks for joining us. Have a good night.